How we doing, coin traders? Thanks for joining me. Gonna look at the graph token GRT on that ticker, one of those big API and indexing cryptos that we're gonna see that does have a lot of potential and future use cases. Now, just gonna talk about the current setup, especially after we had our bottom right around the 10th and 11th of March. So one of the big notable things first to talk about right now is that if we look at an overall price support level, very extremely relevant level right around the 14 cent. So hopefully this should be extremely apparent. Little bit of resistance, big period of support this whole period from when we had our explosive move on the 7th of February all the way until we broke it on the 7th of March. So for one whole month, maintain this level with multiple tests before finally breaking below it, back testing off of the 11. Just below that, our low was actually down at 1051. But then the thing that's actually nice about this type of setup is that the bulls were actually really quick to reclaim this 14 cent level, especially after we had an opportunity to backtest it several times and actually prove that it was a very valid level of support for the close on these daily candles. And so it's not like we only had that happen once too, because we had a little pop and a little rally all the way up to 1755 before pulling back, setting a higher low and also still maintaining that 14 cent line as closing support. So right now, if we look at the exponential moving averages, going to actually turn off the 12 period right now. So only looking at the 26 and the 50. And as you can see, we do have a very nice relevant zone for support going right now in between these 12 and 50 period EMAs. And what's also nice is that these are relevant on several other time frames. So if we do switch over to the 2-day, you can still see a very nice point providing support. Almost had a point of closing support here on this pullback, but that's okay. And then if we do switch over to the weekly, you can see big point of resistance right now, but we are maintaining week over week prices in that zone. So 12 and 26 periods, 26 and 50 period EMAs are going to be the relevant exponential moving averages right now that we are looking at. Now, in addition to that, very nice trend line that's actually extremely relevant too, that we did have a very nice back test off of as well. So you can see multiple touches all this way down along this line. And then even after we did break it, flip bearish again, we pulled back tested that, and actually confirmed that as a back tested level. So now it does start to appear a little bit more bullish, but we do have plenty of bearish considerations to be looking out for. So we can't get all moon boy and just thinking that we're going to rock it and explode just yet, although we do have some potential for some upside targets. But now in the current day, I want to actually look at an extremely big resistance line because although we broke it once, we actually have a big resistance line right now for the close at 1526 because we haven't broken it once we actually flipped bearish below it. So big point of resistance for 3 days, finally broke it, back tested as support for 2 days, and then immediately broke it again, and it has held up as that big point of resistance. So a very clear zone right now forming between 14 cents and that 15.26 level. Big zone, and as we can see, this was extremely big zone that we had a lot of wicking down in prior. So the fight is definitely on right now between the bulls and the bears, whether or not we can actually see another break and hold this level. Ideally, we would rally up above the 16 cent line since that was price level resistance several times as well, and also looking left, a point of closing level resistance. Chart is getting a little jumbled, so let's actually go ahead and clear this up. Flipping over here now to the 4-hour chart, and you can see that little bit of a flag forming on this 4-hour. And if we actually flip over into the 1-hour, you can kind of see how it does form more or less of a pennant. So we have our nice run up to a pull, set our trend high, pulled back, established our low, lower high, higher low, lower high, and now trying to defend not only a higher low, but also, as you can see, we are looking at these exponential moving averages, both the 26 and 50 again being extremely relevant, which also correlates to what we see on the 4-hour with very nice support coming in, not only in terms of price levels, but also in terms of closing levels as well. So this is what we are going to be looking at, and even looking left, you can see resistance and support lines. So that's why finding exponential moving averages and other indicators on your chart that do work because they've been tested and proven are so critical, because we know that once those do get invalidated, that's a huge sign for a trend and an overall momentum shift. But so right now, since we have seen the 26 and the 50 just so resistive previously, but now having an extremely nice bullish candle, not necessarily the amount of follow through, but one of the things we do like seeing is pulling back and back testing the previous resistances as support. So this is actually one of the steps, especially if we start to get the follow through then, to confirm a very nice and strong upside move on some of the shorter time frames anyway. So again, if we flip this over into the 1-hour and we talk about the pennant as well, same sort of thing that does apply. Now, obviously, the exponential moving averages weren't as perfect because we did have a tighter range. so they're not necessarily as broad of targets, but that doesn't mean that they aren't effective right now, especially after we are getting 3 tests of those as that nice support, and we are in this nice bullish formation with the 26 on top, followed by the 50 on bottom. So if we talk about a potential price target based on this being a pennant, then we go from the bottom of the move, which is right on the first breakout, to potentially where we could see the next breakout come in, which would put us basically right on target with about 1678. And looking left, that was a very big point of resistance prior to this nice little pullback and retracement on the shorter term here. So that does seem like it would be a very nice target if we do get a nice little upside move and breakout. And obviously in that instance, that would put us past the 16 cent level as well, and especially above the upper resistance point at about 15.5. So that would be an extremely nice target for a lot of that follow-on bullish continuation and upside movements. But now, like we mentioned, there are plenty of bearish things going on, specifically another type downtrend. But because the major moves are still holding higher lows, for example, higher low when we bottomed out right around 1318, and then our recent low when we bottomed out around 1378. So still holding higher lows does still show a lot of signs of strength, because when we do get flushes, they're not as significant, and also we are holding higher levels of support. So clearly a good and bullish sign, but that does mean that if and when these levels do break, that is extremely bearish, because those are supposed to be very nice support levels, because that's where we did end up on these extremely strong pullbacks and retracements that had a quick little flush to the downside. If that concept doesn't necessarily make sense, drop me a note down in the comments section below, and hopefully I will do my best to be able to explain it to you in that instance. Now, the other thing I want to talk about while we are in this 1 hour is just on this actual pennant type formation, you can see how much quick strength we do have in these bullish upsides. Yet it does take a little bit longer, but that does mean that the bullish pressure is not necessarily sustaining and showing a lot of that follow through. Even though it is a strong little nice pump, we then deteriorate pretty quick and see a very slow and long gradual pullback. Same sort of thing, nice little quick bull pump, but then again, very slow and gradual pullback, pretty much erasing all those gains. So we do need to get a lot more of that continued follow through, otherwise that will turn into a bearish signal, especially if some of these supports break, which right now we are looking at the 15-cent psychological being one of the biggest supports that we are looking at right now. So if this does break and we confirm it as resistance, that's going to be a very bearish sign, and then likely in that instance, we'd be running down to test about 1480. And then a breakage of that will head us down to test some of our lower supports down to 1444. And then we would be looking down into the 13-cent range below that. Now, just flipping over to Bitcoin really quick, because I want to talk about the recovery after the big FOMC flush that we had yesterday. So in hourly consolidation, and actually this applies to 4 hour, for example, too, we are in inside bars in that instance. But let's go ahead and talk about 1 hour, because if this does in fact break bullish, and we do break a trend high right now of about 28,800, then that's going to be a clear signal that we are going to be running up to about 30,000 for Bitcoin, which should trigger a lot of the alts to have that nice bullish run as well. So that's going to be one of the big market factors that we do have to consider. But obviously in that instance as well, we could get Bitcoin retracing, which would have obviously a negative impact and effect on the rest of the altcoin space, and then obviously as well as GRT. Flipping over into the 2 hour really quick before we actually go ahead and wrap up. And the reason is because I do want to talk about the overall bearish volume and selling pressure that's been coming in. So you can see that we've already seen a pretty significant amount of strength coming in, trying to push these prices down. Yet we know that the peak came in obviously yesterday during the FOMC FUD. But since we have gotten the peak for the current situation and scenario, especially after we've rallied to higher prices compared to what we saw back before the FOMC announcement, this is a little bit more of that sign that we are going to start to see some selling exhaustion, especially since after this big bullish strength move, and we have had a nice solid bullish peak pushing prices back up again, we haven't necessarily found the continuation from the bears to be able to break and smash basically below this big critical support level. And especially seems like in this instance, 15 cents is going to be a very nice, strong psychological level that I would expect to be holding right now. But yeah, I definitely would love to know everyone's thoughts and predictions about your expectations for GRT and your analysis as well. Do appreciate all the continued love and support. Thanks for watching to the end. If you did enjoy the show today, please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you have not done so just yet. That's it for now, though, so stay safe, take care, and I'll catch you back in the next video.